Hey, what's up, guys? Aaron here, and welcome back to the Pitlane Podcast, episode number 105 today to review the 2018 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the season finale of the 2018 campaign of Formula One, with the usual host, myself, Aaron, Callum, and Tom. That was a pretty decent season finale, as all things go, I think, at Yas Marina. Sometimes it hasn't had the best racing in the world, but we've got some really nice moments in the middle of that race, and obviously it was a pretty big Grand Prix in a way, because going to 2019, there's so many changes. You've got so many people either changing teams, or in the case of Fernando Alonso, leaving the sport, retiring, or Ericsson going to IndyCar next year. So it felt like a bit more of a special occasion in a way than previous Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, at least to me. But overall, guys, what do you make of that? Do you like that race? I thought it was personally quite a good one.
Yeah, for once, actually, Yas Marina put on a decent race. I mean, there wasn't a huge battle for the lead, but thereafter, there was battles up and down the field, which is quite a difference if we compare ourselves back to 2017, which I think was one of the least, had the race with the least amount of overtakes ever, bar Russia. So it definitely was a step up, and it was a very weird moment in the middle of the race with the threat of rain, which just threw it up on top of its head. But overall, really nice end to the season. Still, I wouldn't have that track as the finale. I'd still put Brazil as the last race, but still really enjoyed it. Nice bit of battling, and it set the season off nicely. And we can go into the winter break and then crave the racing that we had in the final race of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a great race. I'm actually going to disagree. I think it's slowly starting to position itself as the traditional season ender. I think if every race can be like that, then that'd be great, especially considering the regulation change next season. But I personally enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good race. Lots of action, like I said, all up and down the field. And also, like you said, out of those nice moments of people departing and kind of appreciating what they've done. Not just Alonso, but also other drivers. Emotional races for Ricciardo, also for Sainz as well, who's leaving Renault, really wanted to put on a good performance for the team. Ericsson as well, who's, you could argue, he's had his best ever season in F1. So yeah, for sure, a bit of a mixed race, and Will Smith in there just to mix it all up in amongst the entire scenario. And for once, not that much of a cringy guest. I thought he fit in quite well. In the past we had cringy guests don't really get it, and they're just there for the sake of it. But fair play to Will. I think the whole Hamilton keeping him hostage thing, I thought that was brilliant. So I thought just overall a great race and quite a bit of shenanigans involved.
Yeah, no, pretty decent. So in terms of the race, we'll go through like the race order and kind of just talk through team by team. So we'll start off with Mercedes. With Hamilton, well, what can you say? Really a win. He pit early under the safety car. That safety car caused by Raikkonen, unfortunately, retiring, which I found quite symbolic. I was kind of nice to have Leclerc moving up to P4 behind Vettel on track, and Raikkonen just slowly coming to a halt on the pit straight. So kind of like, that changing of guard thing. But under the safety car, Hamilton decides to pit along with Leclerc. A lot of people were debating if that was the right choice. In the end, for Hamilton, at least, it was. Got to the win, and he's now he now holds the record of the most points in a season by a single driver, 405, I think it was, breaking Vettel's record from 2013, which was 397, I believe. So, it's been a pretty cracking season for Hamilton, obviously, and for him, usually we talked about him switching off after he won the title, but he's won 2 races after he won the title.
Just about to bring that up, yeah. I was just about to bring that up and say that in previous seasons he's always switched off, he was on it. And he was, especially, I want to point out qualifying more than anything, because I remember watching qualifying, and throughout the whole session, Mercedes looked ragged. To be fair, every team looked a bit ragged. But I don't know, I feel like now, it's almost like throwing back, I don't want to compare him to Senna, but back then, they knew that they were waiting for that lap from Senna. Like, no one wanted to ruin that lap. And we're getting that thing now with Hamilton where I think we was all waiting for just that one lap at the end. And even his first lap in Q3 was a bit shabby. But then he hooked it up. And he just always seems to do it every weekend. And it's an absolute joy to watch. I tweeted about it. It's just so nice to see the pinnacle of laps being set. And you're almost guaranteed it every weekend at the moment. And that set his weekend up perfectly. And, I mean, into the race, it looked fairly simple. I don't know why other teams didn't do what Mercedes did. I did question that, because if the superstars were known to go for the whole race distance, then why didn't most teams pit under that virtual safety car? That did baffle me a little bit, especially with Ferrari or Red Bull, who could have, taken a bit more of a gamble. But obviously with the likes of Verstappen having a bad start, Ricciardo trying to set himself up for the long game, obviously they weren't on that mindset. But in terms of Mercedes and Hamilton, they ran that season off like that. It's almost like they said, I think, in the media that he's won round 0 of 2019 already, just with the mindset and the way you think about going into next season. He's already got that step ahead and that the forefront going into next season.
Yeah, I've got nothing more to add. I think that's pretty much perfect.
So let's pivot on to Bottas then. Let's pivot on to Bottas, because I'm sure there's a lot of stuff to say maybe about Bottas, who finished out in P5. I don't know what went on with him. Like, he just had major tyre issues, and then Merck apparently saw something wrong on the tyre. I think that's just a lie, and they were covering and saving face for Bottas' sake of just like, yeah, you've ruined your tyres, mate. You need to come in.
He got shafted on strategy by the team, big time.
Well, yeah, they left him out, but I mean, every other team did the same thing. So it like, you know, they could have done the double stack, but like Cal said, every other team did what Bottas did, and very much unlike Bottas, other teams were able to keep their tyres perfectly fine, and then make it work later on in the race, whereas Bottas just shot them. So it was just very baffling, really. And I don't know, I feel like Bottas, we said he was kind of unlucky at the very start of the season. We had this conversation before, I think, on the podcast, but you know, these last couple of races, really he's just tanked, really tanked.
Major.
And it's just like, I don't know. Do you two have any kind of sort of like, oh, he should still be there in Merck? Because for me, I'm fully like, why are you there? You're just taking up a seat in the top team.
That thought has crossed my mind, but I've got a very big feeling now that for 2020, I think they've already pretty much got Ocon in for that seat. I just get the vibe. I think they're going to, almost because they kind of owe it to him for kind of messing up the seat situation for this year. It's almost like a thing where I think they owe it to him. And I think a lot of it will come down to also, I think if Leclerc performs, I mean, obviously we're expecting him to perform well, but what I'm saying is if he like really performs well and Ferrari are really strong next year, because both drivers will be scoring very consistently high points, Mercedes might be like, oh, you know what? Maybe we should do the same as Ferrari and bring in a young driver to try and keep Hamilton and his teammate at a decent level and maximise the points in an even higher standard. Because obviously with Bottas, he just can't match that standard from Hamilton every weekend. The same way Raikkonen most weekends couldn't match that standard from Vettel. You know, you've always got normally you've got Vettel and Hamilton normally on a normal weekend going for the win, and then you'll probably have the Red Bulls in 3rd and 4th, and then you'll have Raikkonen and Bottas battling for 5th and 6th. Like, there's a bit of a gap there in terms of points they're leaving on the table. So I feel like maybe for 2020, Mercedes might go, you know what? We keep on getting these 5th places with Bottas. I mean, Bottas got 5th in the championship, and they could have said to themselves, you know what? If Ocon had been there, we could have maybe got 2nd place at least, and it could have been a lot more points. So I feel
the
like
major thing
he has to step up.
Is it was the thing that everyone pointed out was the fact that that's 2 5th places in a row that he's. I mean, he's had a pretty... And everyone... I don't know, I think he had a bit too much pressure on him because obviously everyone then went, oh, well, Hamilton's wrapped up the championship. Sound. This is now Bottas for finally get to fulfil the wins he kind of deserves. And he does deserve wins, for example, from Russia, for Baku. It's not like he's finished his season winless and is not deserved to win. He has deserved to win on occasion. But when you've got your teammate winning 11 races and you say, okay, maybe that reduce that down to 9, that's still 9-2 in terms of that. Yeah. How many more could Ocon get, for example? Mercedes have got to keep asking this question because Toto Wolff can sit there and go, yes, Hamilton is absolutely amazing. Hamilton's not sticking around for too much longer. And as much as Hamilton wins, yes, he'll stay, but the moment he gets a bit bored, he can bugger off, and you can't be having Bottas as your number 1 driver because if he's winning only 2 races a season, he's going to struggle if Ferrari or Red Bull step up anymore, and they have been stepping up, which is what baffles me about the points for Hamilton, actually. The fact that he's broke the record, he's kind of mad to think how close his season has been. But it's also shown how much it swung back in Hamilton's direction once he got on form.
You said
but
it,
yeah,
won 11 out of 21.
Yeah, true. Yeah, there is that as well. But you have got a very good point there, Tom. That Ocon's almost owed a seat. So it's almost set in stone.
I think there's some. I think the way Toto Wolff worded it as well in the press conference when he was asked about Ocon, I think it's pretty much almost like he was inclining that. Yeah, he's pretty much got a guaranteed in a way verbal agreement that he's going to get that seat pretty much. So I don't know what Bottas's mindset might be going to next year, kind of almost knowing that maybe that's his last year in a top car.
I mean, think about it logically. If you got 5th in the championship this year, next year you're going to have Gasly in the Red Bull, Leclerc in the Ferrari, Red Bull, you have to think, engine-wise, I'd say Honda's better than Renault. So therefore, you have to already put them to, with Verstappen as well in that mix. Already for me, Bottas is automatically favourite for 6th place in the championship for next season already, which is, you mentioned about winning round 0.
Yeah, mentally bad already.
Yeah, and if he couldn't step up his game for this year, then next year he's got another thing coming. So, it's looking pretty tough.
Not looking great, yeah. But moving on to Ferrari then, 2nd place for Vettel. Obviously, Kimi just had that retirement. That's really unfortunate because Ericsson also retired. Two of the Ferrari cars retiring like that, which is a bit odd at the time. The commentator commentated, but Raikkonen, I mean, he would never really be that fast, so he just moves on with his life. He's actually testing the Sauber later this week, so his new chapter of his career, his last chapter, potentially, obviously, is going to start straight away, so I think he's fast. Vettel, on the other hand, pretty simple kind of race. He just kind of did what he could. Got Bottas with a nice move, but Bottas obviously had so many errors anyway, so I don't know, it wasn't anything magical, but I mean, to cap off the season, 2nd place, chasing down Hamilton in the end, just didn't have enough to catch him though, even though he had much fresher tyres. Almost sums up the entire season, really. Like he said, I think a quote was, we're close, but it just wasn't enough. A lot of ups and downs, but just not enough.
I watched practice on Friday. I think the only thing I could say about Ferrari is they were 3rd fastest on race runs on Friday, and they seemed the worst for tyre wear, so I think they turned a corner. Also qualifying pace as well. I thought Vettel did a pretty good job. Because he was obviously we knew about Lewis's fastest final sector in qualifying, but I still think Seb Marv could have done better in qualifying to get Bottas maybe. But all in all, I think they've done a good job because after Friday they were looking the worst for tyre wear, and also overall race pace. Red Bull seemed the strongest, which is again another thing they kind of, I wouldn't say they lost it on Sunday, but they definitely lost a bit of an edge. Everyone thought they'd be a little bit stronger on
like
Sunday.
Brazil strong.
Yeah, and they kind of on Friday suggested that they did have the Brazil kind of pace, but they kind of just lost a bit of an edge on Sunday. So that kind of allowed Vettel the chance to.
Well, it didn't help that Verstappen got swallowed up at the start, did it? Definitely he had to fight a bit more. I mean, we can literally move on to Red Bull.
He put himself in that position also at qualifying, not really that good. He
let himself down. I mean, we can move on to Red Bull straight away pretty much because I don't think there's much else to add for Vettel. I mean, Red Bull, Verstappen, all things considered, he had a really nice race. It was a really fun one, I guess, for him in the cockpit to do all that overtaking that he did to kind of come back. But like you said, he kind of put himself in that situation. Got really frosty with Ocon a little bit. That was really exciting.
I love that. Absolutely love that. That's the sort of battle we need these days. Like when you saw that happening, like there was like round 1 and then round 2, and you were like, oh my god. Like you was waiting for.
That's what I was saying. That's why I was saying last podcast. Like that's why I like that sort of thing. Like people were like putting their noses up to him pushing Ocon off circuit. I'm like, that's the kind of thing that fires then you up for the on-track action. And
you can just feel it. Yeah, it's like radiating from the car.
You felt that palpable tension in the air of like, oh god, it's these two again.
Yeah, and it was a
Ocon
bloody good battle as well. Like it was a really good battle. Like I've got to say, to be fair, Verstappen was exceptional with his overtakes this weekend. Like the way he managed to get past everyone, and it's especially hard when you're so slow in a straight line to duel along 2 long back straights like that for basically 40 seconds of a lap. Like you've got to make the difference. So and the overtake Verstappen did on Bottas I thought was brilliant because Bottas as a defender was a bit strange. So Verstappen literally full on mugged him. So you've never seen an overtake into the 3 chicane.
No, very rare.
3 corner chicane. It's rare to see that. So to see he getting his elbows out was really nice to see. And to say that he outraced Ricciardo. Like Ricciardo's strategy was a bit strange to say the least. Because
he done 35 laps in the ultras.
He did 35 laps in the ultras, and everyone thought, okay, he's going to go on a set of hypers at the end then, and then put on.
That was very odd.
Set of super softs, then what's the point?
I saw an article. They were trying to do the China strategy because obviously Ricciardo in China came in, and he won the race by having just the better tyres at the end. And they were hoping for more of the same. He'd have the edge on tyres. But it wasn't the same because tyre wear isn't like China. It wasn't as bad around here. China's one of the ones where you've got bad tyres, you're going to get swallowed up. But here you can kind of get away with it as like, Ericsson proved defending, Van Dorn proved defending as well. It wasn't that sort of vibe. But yeah, I thought Verstappen did a good job.
No, I thought on the whole, I think like out of what you said, Red Bull. Oh well, both of you. It's just the fact that the Red Bull they kind of dipped, which is a bit odd because obviously everyone was hyping up the fact that Red Bull will be obviously they like to set themselves up for the race, and they kind of hit that wall. Like, we saw Ricciardo catching Verstappen, and then Verstappen was catching Vettel, and Vettel was catching Hamilton. Like, the lap times were inverted to how they were in race on track position, but it was just a bit of a strange one that
I mean, let's not forget Verstappen had that also engine issue that basically slowed him down, and he was only 12.7 seconds off the lead actually in the end. So it's kind of a what if kind of scenario. If he had done better in quali and then kind of got a good start, then didn't have that engine issue, I think it would have been a very different race. I think he would have had Verstappen. That would have been really crazy if Verstappen was in the middle of Hamilton and Vettel in that 3-second gap. That would have been very tasty. But obviously it just wasn't meant to be. It was a very odd issue. I think apparently the engine, they have these kind of safety guards where the engine
home mode,
tries to save itself. But obviously it's the last race of the season, so it doesn't need to do that. So they were kind of like, we apologise for that. Just click this fail and reset it at some point. He did, and it was back to full power. So that was frustrating, but
there was definitely something in the air with the fact that it definitely felt like the cars were on the ragged edge this weekend. Like, we haven't really seen it before, but it definitely felt like they were coming to the end of their lives. Like, I know they were always
it felt like that as well with the rain coming down as well, like a little bit towards the end. Like, I don't know, like especially there was an onboard with Ricciardo on the slowdown lap where Horner's talking to him about thanking him for his time at Red Bull, and just if you look at the onboard, the way the sky looks is so much darker, and Ricciardo's coming underneath the hotel. You've got the little raindrops on his halo, and I don't know. To me, I look at that kind of video, little picture. I'm like, it really felt like a really gloom and doom sort of last day in the office sort of day.
Yeah.
Sort of like, a storm's coming for next year in a way. It's
a nice little metaphorical.
It's a little bit
way of thinking about it
weird
there.
one. But yeah, there's definitely that sense, like you said, that these cars, these prototypes in a way for the entire year, pretty much got to their end of the life cycle. If you push them one more race, maybe they start to break. So
we saw that with Mercedes, Ferrari. I mean, the amount of retirements we had that race was strange.
Yeah, Abu Dhabi's usually got a very good record actually of not really retirements, but obviously Hulkenberg spun at the beginning with no fault of his own. Raikkonen though with the retirement, Ericsson early on, even after a great first little stint there. Ocon eventually, and then Gasly right at the end as well, which is really unfortunate for Honda to have a little bit of reliability issue right at the end there. And actually, apparently, the oil that spotted out of his engine blinded Verstappen at the end of the race as well.
Yeah, I remember seeing that at the end. Running out of tear-offs and literally can't see. It's just the fact that it was a Toro Rosso blinding a Red Bull. That was just quite hilarious, to be honest. It couldn't be any other car, to be honest.
His new teammate blinding him.
Yeah, even better, yeah.
Setting up for next year. But so Red Bull, all in all, though, I think pretty strong. It's a solid Red Bull finish, I guess, for this year. And Ricciardo, I know he tried to have some fun out there, but now new chapter for him. Obviously, he doesn't test at Renault because Red Bull, the only team that have been salty enough to keep him contracted even for the test as a Red Bull driver, so he'll not be doing anything. He'll be actually going back to the factory.
Put his feet up.
Yeah, put his feet up. He said he's going to go back to the Christmas party in Milton Keynes first, and then join up with his Renault family over the winter. So we'll see, obviously, to next year how that goes on for him. But it was an okay race, I guess, for him in the final one.
He finished.
Yeah, he finished.
At least.
I guess that's the best gift he could have had from Red Bull this year.
To say the cars were very on edge
this
weekend.
practice, didn't he? So.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all that matters.
Carlos Sainz, we mentioned Hulkenberg, that was a crazy spin. I don't know, it's quite a spectacular one, really, because it was quite a slow corner and just kind of went, whoop, there you go. It's over.
Yeah.
Exactly the same as the Gutierrez Maldonado one from a few years ago.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Slow corner.
Slow corner, and it just, the momentum was crazy, how you just flipped.
Yeah.
But, a bit of racing incident as well, I think. That one.
I mean, thankfully it's fine. I mean, the way he kind of hit the barrier was a bit odd.
I did have that thought through my mind for a split second when I saw that fire come out of the rear. I was like, crap, is he going to get out? Because
I did think that
there was talk about the halo and like how you can get blocked in. And
thankfully the marshal came real quick with the extinguisher.
Yeah, but if it was like a serious, that was like a pretty calm fire. But if it was like a serious one, or if it's underneath, like on the end, like coming out, for example, out the roll hoop or something like that, you have to one in those situations. Like I had a second there where I was like, and the way they were flipping that car over, I don't know, like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I know Charlie Whiting has been looking at that.
I had a moment there where I was like,
I don't know if Hulkenberg's if he's come out and said the halo did anything for why he couldn't get out, because I think it was more so it was just a very awkward angle. He was there. He said in the radio he was hanging like a cow on his strap. So I don't know if it was a case of if he undid the straps, maybe he would have just fallen straight out of the car. He didn't want to do that, so he was sort of just like, get me out of this thing, roll it round. But then, like you say, Tom, the roll itself was a little bit because we've had some cases where if you roll the car, sometimes we've seen it even like when they roll the car when there's not a driver in it and it just slams on the ground. It's like that's not great for the back.
And surely if that's on fire, like you couldn't even roll it over, so you'd have to get the person out somehow underneath, and it's not like you can break the halo. You know, we see a car crash and sometimes they just snap the doors off in real life vehicles. You can't just break the halo. It's not going to happen. So you need to try and maneuver around that. So yeah, for sure. I mean, it crossed my mind. I was like, oof.
I think it crossed everyone's mind. I was like, when I looked at it, I was like, he's not getting out of that.
Because I literally thought back to Alonso, Australia 2016 as well. Like in that situation, if his car caught fire there as well, against the wall, exact same angle, the car was kind of like leaning on its half side, diagonal-ish. Again, another situation like, or what if Alonso had been unconscious or something? Those situations, bit scary, a little bit scary. Like you're helpless, which is kind of the bad thing about it.
He did sound quite panicked, to be fair.
Yeah, he did.
He sounded really panicked.
Get me out of this thing. Get me out of this thing. Yeah.
But yeah, I think the FIA have looked at it a little bit because, I mean, obviously
it's still something up for
you
debate,
can't predict. Yeah, it's still up for debate. But the fact that the car was, I mean, if it was on the other side, then you probably would have been able to get out. But the fact that it was being pinned up against the barrier, it was quite shocking. And there's not always a fire marshal's to hand. So
or a crane to turn the car over, which is what I was thinking at the time.
To be fair, when they did that, I was like, when was the last time they actually rolled a car over, like before the driver got out? And I don't think there actually has been a time really.
No.
For a long
Most
time
they're
at
able
least.
to crawl out. I think I think a lot of it that. I think he could have been able to get out in a different situation if the car was a little bit lower, but the way he hit the barrier, and the barrier there at Abu Dhabi is so high compared to the floor that the car was such a steep angle that he literally, if he did unshackle his thing and managed to climb out the halo, he literally would have had still a decent drop to the ground as well.
Yeah.
So I think that changed a lot. Alonso's one, he was pretty much on the ground sideways, sort of. He wasn't really fully underneath the car. He was kind of sideways on, so he just crawled straight out, like he said back at the time. I wanted to crawl out so my mum could see I'm okay straight away on the TV. So it was a bit of a difference. It's a very unique situation, I think, but definitely something they need to still look at. And they've always said that. I think they're always going to keep on looking at that sort of situation. But for his teammate Carlos Sainz, then P6, like Tom mentioned earlier,
what performance.
He wanted to finish out his time at Renault and kind of be like, you guys,
the midfield.
Yeah, you guys deserve this. And yeah, he was doing really well. Like he was literally in the middle of nowhere because he was doing that well. Like he finished 1 minute 12 behind the leader, but the next car was Leclerc, like 22 seconds back. So he was literally in a class of his own.
He pulled off a weird strategy.
He was Formula B, and everyone else was Formula C.
Yeah. He pulled off a weird strategy. He said in the post-race interview, and again, this goes back to what we mentioned, Carl, about the Ferrari Mercedes strategy with Bottas and the Ferraris. Yeah. He did 35 laps in the Ultra with an overcut, and his pace was really, really strong. So he basically leapfrogged everybody. Like you could see him constantly overtaking cars. He just was so much faster than anybody else for some reason. He just managed to make the tyre work, and he was faster and faster every single lap. And he managed to do 35 laps worth, a bit like Ricciardo, and then came in, had the fresher super, and got the job done. So I think in a way that's maybe what other teams were hoping for, but didn't really work out. I think that's where the strategy might have had a bit of a different impact, because with the safety car, it allows you to keep your tyres in longer, the VSC as well. You had those moments where you can try and keep your tyres under control, but Sainz did an incredible job. Like, phenomenal.
Fair play to him, because I know he was in a bit of a battle with Leclerc, because obviously Leclerc was in the mix before he did the same pit stop on when the VSC came out with Hamilton, and I thought that kind of ruined his race a little bit. The fact that he was dropped into a huge amount of traffic.
Oh, he did, yeah. Hamilton
he was stuck behind Alonso or Van Dorn, I think.
Yeah, he got stuck behind Alonso for about 15 laps because he just didn't have enough raw pace through the corners, I guess. And Hamilton even let Verstappen go because he knew he wasn't in the same race. But eventually the difference was Hamilton eventually got into clean air, whereas Leclerc was still in traffic, basically. So probably wasn't the best strategy for them. But I guess, it's all kind of learning, I guess, from on Leclerc's side. It was probably a Sauber decision, probably to try and drop him in, but they just miscalculated it a little bit. But that's
even still with Leclerc's battling at the start, getting ahead of Ricciardo. Before the safety car came out, which was quite lucky.
He still had a decent race. Yeah, that battle with Ricciardo was great. And then result-wise, that's another P7 in the books, basically. You got P7 at Brazil. Yep. What was it in Mexico? I can't remember what you got in Mexico. I think it was a pretty okay
Either
result,
sixth
wasn't
or
it?
P8, I think it might have been a P8 or something. I think
Yeah.
it was P8 and then P9 Ericsson. I think it was in
Right,
Mexico.
okay, yeah. So, yeah, pretty much nearly all 3 P7s. So,
Consistent in the points.
yeah, really good. Yeah, just solid effort trying to maximise what he could in that Sauber car. And now he tests the Ferrari later this week, which he's already said is going to be emotional just to hop in the 2018 Ferrari this week, let alone the actual baby he's going to be driving next year. But yeah, I think he's had such a solid first season. That was a nice way to round it off, because especially when he got Ricciardo there, that was really cool. Like, like almost a bit of what we could be seeing in the future, overtaking a Red Bull.
Yeah, that'd be nice to see. But I mean, apart from that, I mean, it's really strange because it's like everyone. Well, with Renault, it was only one in the top 10, one retired. Sauber, one in the top 10, one retired. Force India,
all the people
one in the top 10.
leaving were retiring. You got Raikkonen retiring, going to Sauber. Ocon's not being the F1
We've said
retired.
this before.
Gasly going to Red Bull.
Happy endings don't really happen.
Yeah, no, they're not
F1.
as poetic as you want.
Alonso and Ricciardo got very lucky this time around.
They got lucky, yeah. It's not as poetic as the story goes, and even not as poetic as sometimes a lot of the time football end stories are actually quite nice most of the time. But F1 just never has that same poetry of like, to last race, you know how this sport is. Get
Take
kicked in
this
the nuts,
L, bro.
Get kicked in the nuts.
Massive L.
It did seem in the midfield. What I noticed is there was a lot of like strategy errors where, like, I remember, I think before Ocon obviously retired, he came out behind. I think obviously they both Force India's pit, and they just got stuck in a load of traffic. There was quite a bit of traffic in that midfield because I think a lot of the teams are very similar paced. Because obviously we saw the Haas go backwards. Because Grosjean had a brilliant qualifying.
We saw a really nice 3-wide moment, Van Dorn, Grosjean and Ocon. That was a really nice scrap.
Yeah,
it's like, how often have we seen those three cars scrap away this season? So, yeah, there was some really nice fighting, and it was good for Van Dorn, just on his point, to have actually a fun race like that in his final time. It's been a very long year for him.
I like seeing that. I was like, go on that lad, because that was a cracking move as well. So out of two of them, Ocon steaming down the outside, and then you've got Grosjean in the middle as well. Fair play to him, but I just really enjoyed the midfield battle, and I think for the whole season I've really enjoyed the midfield battle. And the fact that you can see it on the race results, you've got a Renault, a Sauber, a Force India, a Haas. It's always 4 different cars in the top 10. Which was really nice. And yeah, I mean, Perez, just comment on him. Another solid race. Always a little bit bittersweet because I feel like Ocon had the better of him this weekend, especially in qualifying. I think Perez qualified down in like P15 or P14.
Yeah.
And then Ocon had such a good qualifying, and then he had a really good start to the race, but I think the strategy ruined him, and then retired. But and Perez managed to pick up the pieces, along with Grosjean and Magnussen, who. I think Grosjean went backwards and Magnussen came forwards, so they kind of met in the middle.
yeah, pretty much. So very weird one about that. But again, it's almost that sentence you say, almost kind of like, okay, I guess they're perfect for each other as teammates for Haas, because they just come together at the same point in the circuit eventually.
Yeah, they did.
So yeah, I mean, in the end, also I thought it was funny at the end on the cool down, like Grosjean was like, "Can I do some donuts?" And his engineer was like, "That's gonna be a no from the pit wall." And Grosjean did it anyway. He was just like, "Oh, whatever."
You know, the way he did it as well, he literally looked like he tried to sneak it in. He
No, because
it
wasn't. There's from what I remember from last year, I don't think there's a grandstand anywhere near that. Like, you have a walkway, and so all the any of the people that saw him do the donut were the mega rich people on the yachts, and that was it. Or anyone who's lucky enough to
in the hotel.
Yeah, anyone in the hotel. And yeah, literally, Cal, I feel like he almost kind of looked around left, right, and quickly did one in the corner and just came back.
Just quickly, I'll nick one in here. No one will see it. That was brilliant. And I mean, I think, well, apart from the rest of the results, I mean, Toro Rosso had a pretty dire weekend, along with Williams, who both, they just kind of flopped on the face, to be honest. I think Williams were just kind of happy the season's over. Toro Rosso are left scratching their heads a little bit.
I think they just didn't have much pace in Sector 3 or 2, really. I mean, I think the Honda still has a little niggling thing with reliability, but like Tom said, I think pretty much now, even the paddock kind of agrees, pretty much the Honda, I think, is even a little bit faster than the Renault engine now these days. It's just that last final bit of reliability. And then Toro Rosso themselves as a team, obviously, they still have that thing where they build a good car and it kind of gets a little bit slow towards the end of the season.
They don't understand how they built a good car. That's why.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like they still probably don't understand how Gasly did what he did in Bahrain, I'm guessing. But yeah, they have these mega tracks where it's a bit more technical, and their car really just never suits it that much. But for Honda's sake, for next year, I think Red Bull are going to have a pretty decent stab at it, I think. But we talked about Haas. The next one along then is the man, Fernando Alonso, his last race in Formula 1. It was a really nice tribute at the end. I really liked that. The cool-down lap. I mean, his race there wasn't much to talk about his race, but at least the tribute at the end was great.
I thought, the fact he got Q2 was a shock. No one put him down for Q2.
It was a mega lap. His engineer thought so as well.
And then he got, obviously, starting 15th, he had the chance to actually maybe try and get a couple of points, which was never on the cards. He kind of put himself in that position. He kind of played himself in, and to be fair, a bit unlucky. He kind of missed out. I would have loved to have seen him get 10th place, because I can't imagine how hard he would have probably dive bombed Magnussen for that point,
Maybe,
considering.
Yeah. But at the same
also
time,
the joke on the radio about the 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, I don't think he personally cared that much, because his engineer was like, we can get 1 point. He's like, I've got 1,800, mate. I don't care. And his engineer was like, well, make it 1,801, please.
No, the thing is, the funny stat was he's actually got 1,899. So if he actually got that 1 point, it would have rounded up to 1,900. But he didn't give him the right message. It wasn't the right motivation. He got it wrong.
I don't think he would have cared too much about that stat, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I'm just saying. It's just,
we do have to comment on that tribute, though, at the end.
It was great.
Awesome.
It was the donuts.
The fact that, I think the whole lap, really, the fact that Hamilton and Vettel were already further up the track and they did their own donuts earlier on the lap.
In sync, that was so cool.
But then the fact, which was cool alone. But then the fact that they kind of slowed down and then kind of saw Alonso come through and kind of, you can't communicate cockpit to cockpit. There was just that gentleman's kind of nod of like, yeah, cool, we'll take you on this Prix lap. You're going to be in the middle, Vettel and Hamilton either side, and like it's your final outing. You may not have fought with us this season at all, but he's a double world champion. He's done so much previously when he's had the car, so there's sort of that kind of guard of honor drive, and then the donuts at the end were.
It's awesome. When you sit there and you look at it and you go, that was 11 world titles.
Yeah, in one shot.
In the space of 3 cars. I mean, obviously
awesome.
There was a hilarious thing of Sirotkin, and there was a Haas in the background as well as they came out of the hotel. But just the donuts and the interview at the end, it just kind of made you realise what has just happened. It's made you realise how much
that shot.
Even just the achievement. That
shot is significant for you too.
That shot is the dynasty of this era, basically, of Formula 1. This generation, not era, this generation of Formula 1. Because I feel like this generation almost started, but when I say like bookending this generation, it's pretty much when Hamilton came into the sport and you had Hamilton, Vettel, and Alonso there. Obviously, Alonso did his titles before Hamilton, but Alonso is still fighting so hard this entire time. So it's like this generation.
He was always a championship contender.
Yeah,
this is the thing.
So for this generation,
main
that picture that's been blasted over Twitter where 3 of them on track side by side, that's like the generation of F1.
It's when you go back in time, you think 2007 it was Hamilton and Alonso, 2010 through to 12, all 3 of them were up for the championship every single year. And then in more recent years, it's been Hamilton and Vettel. And it was just something so special because it made you kind of sit back and realise we've just watched history. We've almost seen an era end. And I mean, when Vettel and Hamilton hang their helmets up as well, it will make you realise even more. But it's made you realise the achievements that all 3 of them have done. And then you kind of sit back and go, these are the top 3 drivers on the grid at the moment. But not only that, it's probably one of the top 3 drivers in, out of the all-time greats, top 10.
I'd treat it, that's probably 3 of the F1's all-time top 5 in one shot.
Yeah.
Probably, I'd say. There's a couple of other drivers I think of, but that's 3 of the top 5. I stand by. I think Alonso doesn't get the credit he deserves. Some people don't think he's overrated. I still think he's underrated. And he can make any car work. He's 2 championships he won in a car that was not the fastest. In 2005, the McLaren was the car to be in, but it was unreliable. And then in 2006, that was a 50-50. Renault was fast in the first half of the season. Second half of the season, it was Ferrari that was strongest car, but Alonso still did enough to pull through, kind of like Button did with Brawn kind of thing, 2009. Just kind of nursed it at home. So, yeah, for me, I think he's just an all-round phenomenal racer. He can race any car and make it work. I think as he's doing today in NASCAR, for example, at Bahrain.
I think his only negative, his only real big negative, is literally just been his admin and career choices. That's literally
the politics.
The stuff that doesn't matter on track is what has been his biggest downfall. But apart from that, I tweeted out, like, when you think of a fighter in Formula One, I go straight to Alonso. Like, Hamilton's got raw speed. Vettel's had the killing instinct sometimes back in his Red Bull days, and also speed at times. But Alonso's just fighter. Like, you look up definition of F1 warrior, it's just Alonso, just always there, getting the most. You'll drive a bloody wagon.
If you put a caption like, I'd like to think Hamilton and Vettel is more calculated, whereas Alonso was a bit more ragged, a bit more, which is maybe was his downfall in a way in certain cases. But when he nailed it, you were like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely want to. I tip my cap to Alonso. Grew up with him, going to war with my hero, and at the time it was like, who's this guy? Come out of nothing, and also he's just pioneered F1 in this country. Like, I can tell you from experience, and as he said before 2003, which is his first proper year of Renault, he took a sabbatical in 2002 and he was there in 2001 with Minardi. But around that time, F1 was not on Spain. It didn't exist. You had to get like a satellite dish and watch German TV or something. And it was only, I think, after he won in Hungary in 2003, around that time, his first win, Spain kind of picked up on it. And for 2004, that was the first official season I think there was F1 coverage in Spain. So the influence he's had in just his own country alone is massive. So I think he's been a pioneer, a massive tribute to the sport.
Yeah, I think that's perfect sentence to end that on. So we talked about, we kind of already mentioned Toro Rosso's and Williams really, and we talked about Van Dorn. So pretty much that is the entire race wrapped
also,
up.
I'll mention all the post-race between just Lewis and Vettel as well on the social medias. Helmet swap today.
That was really cool. That was really cool.
Nice, kind of really like putting a bow tie on everything. Really nice bow tie on the season, I think.
I really like the photo of Vettel wearing Hamilton's helmet and Hamilton squeezing into Vettel's one.
That made me pissed. You could see that helmet was way too small for his head.
Yeah, because Vettel's head's a lot thinner than Hamilton's is. But it's an absolutely great photo because it also just, you look at it like, what, that looks so odd. But it really is the biggest sign of respect. Like Hamilton said in the video, footballers have their jerseys that they swap. You've seen so many times. I think even at the AC Milan game, an AC Milan sub went over to Juve's part of the stadium and got a photo with Ronaldo, even though they're on rival teams. It is really like one of the biggest signs of respect in that regard of, that's their jersey basically that they can swap at the end of a match, at the end of a race. It's
rare to see both of them swapping helmets at all. Really.
Yeah,
I can't remember the last time Hamilton. I think Hamilton did it with Alonso.
You've seen Alonso do a lot of swaps because he wants to put it in his museum. And you've seen when drivers leave, they swap. Kind of Ericsson did a swap with Ricciardo and Leclerc, as he said, his best two mates in the paddock. But you rarely see champions kind of swap helmets mid-career. Like, they're not going anywhere, at least for a year or two. But I think this year, especially with the way Hamilton won it, but how close the fight was earlier on, and the way also Vettel dealt with the loss in quite he never kind of outburst anything. I think both of them kind of almost have grown in respect for one another in a way this season, I think.
I think that respect is always improving between those two.
Yeah, and it's really good to see for the fact that just for next year then, you reset and you go again and you have that respect and you just carry
Round 3 next year.
Round 3.
I'm already excited.
I'm all the wild cards with Leclerc, Verstappen,
You've got many wild cards.
Bottas is there, unfortunately. If Ocon was in that Mercedes, bro, imagine.
That'd be a competitive top 6. Just saying that right now.
That would be the most competitive we've had in a long time.
But we will leave all those kind of afterthoughts and kind of rounding out the season for a season review episode. We don't know when that exactly will be, but hopefully will be a little bit before Christmas. We'll try and get that recorded to you guys, but that will then be the last one of the season until we go for 2019. That's been reviewing the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. If you guys have enjoyed this podcast, then be sure to hit that like button. Let us know what you thought about anything we talked about in the comments below. What do you guys make? If you're an Alonso fan out there, what do you make of that final race for him? Or if you're a fan of Raikkonen and whatnot, your respective driver going to another team maybe, let us know all that in the comments below. As usual, if you want to check us out, our social media has been on the page the entire time. If you like what we're doing around here, you can support us directly on Patreon, the links below. And we're also on audio, SoundCloud and iTunes, the links below as well. And finally, if you do fancy getting yourself a racing desk chair for F1 2018 or or whatever you want to do at your home desk, whatever, you can check out GT Omega and use the code Pitlane F1, and that will directly help us as well. But that's been the Pitlane Podcast, and 105 to round out the season. We'll be back next time for a season review to end things off thoroughly. But hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. For now, goodbye.